Welcome to S.A.L.T, Seeking Living Truth. Today we are looking into the past.
We are?
We are looking into the past. Aspen and I were at an antique shop and we bought this. And Miranda will now tell you all about this.
Oh yeah, this apparently Uncle Arthur's bedtime stories. Have some of these. I have one couple bedtime storybooks from when I was a kid, and read them to myself and read them to my kids, and that was fun. So they found an Uncle Arthur bedtime stories at an antique store, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I met Uncle Arthur. Was it him? I think I met him. I can't remember. Anyway, it was him or his brother. I think it was him. Anyway, I had a friend from camp. We had been at camp in Hawaii and flew back to California, and I stayed with him for a little bit. And the house, they had a couple of houses. It was like a family compound. Anyways, Uncle Arthur's family thing, and there was 2 or 3 houses back there. And there he was, sitting in a big old chair, reading a newspaper. Not smoking a pipe, but reading a newspaper.
I don't think anybody has a picture of Uncle Arthur smoking a pipe in their head.
No, but you think, it was an old man. But yeah, and they were really nice. And it was kind of cool. And I, with apologies to Adventists everywhere, I've never been a big Uncle Arthur fan. I read the books, and we had the books, and I almost bought a pristine set of the red ones, the old ones, the red cover books. I found an antique shop in North Carolina somewhere, and they were $20, and I almost bought it. It was the entire set for $20.
He should have, because then we had Aspen.
Yeah, and then I went back to get them like the next weekend, because the stores only open on the weekend. This was in Boone, North Carolina, and I went back and they were sold. They were gone. But yep, I remember, and I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I get them No. Anyway, so we bought other things at the antique store here in I was about to say Keene. That was in Cleburne. That was in Cleburne, Texas. And we had quite the fun, entertaining time seeing Aspen use something we got out her. So we're going to bring Aspen on now and let her show you her newfound skills and using old technology, and I don't know, you want to make sure your iPad's not blocking the screen there. Yeah. Yes. So we bought her a record player, and I thought that would be fun because, people are getting into vinyl now, Vinyl records are coming back, of all things. Oh my gosh. And so we got Aspen one, and yes, we're going to play an LP. And if you haven't seen it, I put a video on there of Aspen learning how to use the record player and how the needle works on vinyl records, and the differences between a 33 and a 45, and yeah, it was quite entertaining to see her. Like, why she thought that once you put the needle on one song, it would just play that song over and over and over again until you move the needle, and we had to explain to her that's not how record players work.
Choose a side.
But that side.
This side?
Yep.
This side. Okay. And then we place it.
And we place it
on the thing.
And the old find the hole in the middle and be able to put it on.
And you take the guard off.
Take the guard off carefully so you don't break the needle or scratch it. Good.
And then you turn it on.
Turn it on, give it power.
And then, okay, it's on the right thing.
You lift the needle.
You lift it and you put it somewhere.
Put it somewhere.
Should we put it there?
It's wherever you want to start a song.
Then we'll put it there. Then you lower it.
And there you have it.
Oh,
Right at the very end of a song.
well, how was I supposed to know?
Those of us who grew up with these, we were so good. We could put that needle right at the beginning or right at the end, wherever we wanted it. We were pros at placing it.
Well, how would you know, though? How would you know?
You could just look and see. There it is. There's the beginning. There's the middle. There's the end.
It's a circle. There is no beginning or end.
Yeah. And you got all the settings right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is an old, if you didn't see it, here, let's give them something they can actually maybe figure out.
Oh.
So, if you can hear it, this was cutting edge, controversial music back in its day. If you remember, can guess who this is, or did you show them early on?
I showed them.
Ah,
I
yes.
just displayed it.
This was Evie, if you remember Evie back in the day, and how controversial Evie was because she was so modern rock and roll pop sounding. That's not Christian music. And there you have it.
That just sounds like church.
Yes. All right. And then, yeah. So now Aspen has a 45, a record player. And instead of MP3s and CDs and
No one uses CDs.
everyone uses CDs now.
The only
because-
reason I have a CD is for a school project.
Yes. CDs when music made sense. And she's going to be listening to vinyl. Next thing she'll want is cassette tapes. And
Actually, that would be cool.
Not really.
go to your room. Anyway, so there you have it.
And then you turn it off.
And then you turn it off.
Oh,
That actually
no.
is the...
There. Then you turn it off. It looks like it should be a
We'll be
switch.
working on her technology skills, yes. But there you go.
Excuse me. I am the technology
Yes.
generation.
As evidenced by... Where's the on button? Anyway. So, yes. So do you remember Evie?
Yeah, vaguely.
Vaguely.
Too. Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how over the generations, parent people way back in the day were revolting and going, oh, it's the end of the world. Jesus is coming because we're now playing rock and roll in churches when Evie came out. And now it's like...
Yeah, I remember Little Marcy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had her record.
Yep. Little
Yeah.
Marcy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next wave came out with Amy Grant. And that was really the end of the world, And then Michael W. Smith. And it just went on and on and on. Yeah. My dad, you long-haired hippies, leftist liberal teenagers listening to that rock and roll. What?
He didn't say that.
No, but he wasn't a big... If it wasn't Gaither, it wasn't good. And I couldn't
I'll believe that.
stand Gaither. He'd
I'll
sit
believe
there in
that.
his den and he would just watch the Gaither reunion they did, and I would just be like, oh, how can anyone watch this? But, yeah.
You might be offending some people. They may love
sure
the Gaithers.
I am, and blessings on you. Everyone needs love, even people who like Gaither. So Jesus loves you too.
Oh, I might as well just quit now.
Sorry, I'm a child of the 80s, so, my tastes are going to be different. I appreciated my father's tastes. So. Anyway, so, Miranda, what else are we talking about today instead of offending people from our different generations?
We're talking about covetousness and the emotion of covetousness.
And how we should be content in all situations.
That's right.
Even content watching the Gaither Vocal Band.
I'm sure.
See?
I'm sure Brett
I worked that in.
I'm sure he learned to be content
I did.
watching the Gaither
Gaithers,
band.
that's true.
Yes, and I'm sure it was a father-son activity.
It was that. It was it was fun to spend that time with Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that part is actually true. I did enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was enjoying it, and I enjoyed seeing him enjoy something so much. So that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep. Well, anyways, a couple weeks ago in Sabbath school, or maybe last week in Sabbath school, we're talking about covetousness, and the topic of the emotions of covetousness came up. And honestly, that discussion did not last long because it was a new idea pretty much to everyone there. And anyways, I got to thinking about it this last week, and I ran across a text, Philippians 4:11, where Paul says, I have learned to be content in all circumstances. And I thought, now there is the emotion, or one of the emotions of covetousness, which would be discontent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so then discontent, being an emotion of covetousness, it convinces us to do more and have more, to be more, right? And there's no content in that when we're constantly so busy just doing and having in order to be.
Mm-hmm. Discontent is an interesting word.
Yeah, how's that?
I just thought I wanted to be a part of everything, so I thought I'd say something.
Okay.
No, it is discontent. Think about it. Discontent is, it's not I'm so angry, and it's not, oh, I'm so happy everything's good. Discontent is like somewhere mucky in the middle of, I'm just not happy enough that I'm just annoyed enough. I'm not, but I can't stay here. I need something.
Yeah, it's like something that doesn't taste quite right.
Quite right, yes.
It's pretty good, but
something,
yeah.
Gotta do more, yeah.
Yeah, it's not living up to our standard of perfect and
Yeah.
how we think it should be, so then we are discontented.
Yeah, it's just enough to make you want to do something about it. Yeah.
Right. And so, anyways, there's more to that text, right? And it tells us the secret of being content in all situations. Because sometimes situations can be pretty discontenting, right? And we can't see beyond that discontent. It just keeps bugging us.
What is something that makes you discontented?
Oh, my. Sometimes I think plenty of things. Now, you know what? The temperature not being just right. I'm saying that because, we've had this long-standing contention with
Yes.
Aspen
Yes.
about what the perfect
is,
temperature is.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. Let's go out in our shorts and play volleyball. It's like -2 degrees. Aspen is like, if it's cold, it's perfect.
Yes. And,
She's over there doing it.
her parents enjoy something a little warmer.
A little warmer than that.
Not necessarily hot, but, I appreciate the South for its lovely warmer winters.
Warmer weather. But then if it gets too hot, I don't know, 79 degrees. Oh, it's too hot. I'll melt away. I can't go outside. That's Aspen.
Yeah. So we all know what discontent is. We have all suffered from discontent.
Yes. My discontent is sitting in meetings. That's my discontent.
Oh, sitting in meetings or sitting in traffic.
Sitting in traffic. Oh my gosh.
Or waiting in line in general. I'm mentioning all of Brett's discontents.
I hate waiting. Yes. Yes, any of those things.
Yeah,
especially now put waiting in line in traffic.
And the problem is like we're waiting to be content.
Yes.
Right?
I'll be content when I'm at the head of the line in front of all the other cars. Yeah.
How long does that last?
As long as you keep that speed up and everybody behind you. That's
Yeah.
sorry.
Well,
All right, anyway.
I used to drive like that.
But she's learned to be calm and peaceful and not have ulcers driving. Except if a big truck cuts her off. Then watch out and get out of her way.
We're learning. This is
It's a journey.
Because Paul said, I have learned to be content in all situations.
Yes.
And so, anyways, so basically we were talking about not being able to, what?
Arvin Vienda, they're watching us in the Pathfinders. Happy Pathfinders from people in Las Vegas where we used to live.
Oh, cool. Because now our oldest daughter is just in Vegas on a little trip.
We just got a text from her. She said, went to the Whole Foods. She went to a church in the Red Rocks. Yeah, she's like, yeah, cool.
How fun
well,
is
thanks
that?
for watching. We had Pathfinders here today, and it must be a Pathfinder Sabbath or something.
It must be, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Pathfinders, parade rest. Sorry. Every Pathfinder knows what I just said, so Because that's like, what? Aspen was never a pathfinder. She never found the path.
And so anyways, this discontent causes us blindness. Like, we can't really see past it sometimes.
So,
And basically, it's the devil that creates that blindness for us. And he gives us these eyeglasses to lead us to believe that we can see into the future. Take the parable of the rich fool, for example.
Yes, the rich fool. He was a fool and he was rich. Thus the name, the parable of the rich fool. That was my theological breakdown of that passage.
Okay, well, anyways, Jesus told this story where this guy's crops just like produced abundantly,
Massive
in particular
amounts.
this one year.
Yeah.
And he already had barns, and he had stuff in his barns.
Because
and
it
such.
said, I will build more barns. And he's like, oh,
And he's like, wow, I got all this extra stuff. Now what am I going to do? He's
tear
like,
down the barns.
I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to tear down the old barns, and
Build the
I'm
new
going to
barns.
build new, bigger barns, and I'm going to put all my stuff in there.
Yes.
And all my extra grain in there. And then he said to his soul, he said, you know what? He says, look at all this stuff we've got stored up for years to come. He says, take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry.
Yes, I don't know how you drink your crops, but apparently he was going to.
So when we are discontent, we think that if we just have more of something, the discontent will go away.
You didn't finish
What?
the story.
What was the
And
rest of the
so,
story?
and so, he says to himself, "Self, let's just relax and eat, drink, and be merry." And then the Lord comes and says, "Fool that you are,"
That's true.
as God so often does in our lives. Fool that you are!
Yeah.
Don't you know your very life is demanded from you this night? And he dies, and it all goes away. It's a very sad story. It's a tragedy. It's a Greek play. Everyone dies in the end.
That's
Yes.
not quite how it works, but anyways.
Yes.
Anyways, so sometimes, despite all that we may have, and thinking of some people that we know, young people that you're related to, anyways.
Oh, yes.
You know, like these kids didn't really lack for too much of anything, and they always had the latest cell phone, and yet every time a new version of that cell phone came out, they had to have it. I mean, the utter discontent that they suffered while waiting for
Not
it
having
to
the
finally
next.
come out, and needing that new phone or needing the latest pair of tennis shoes that was going to make them run faster and such like that. You know, we can be discontent whether we have an abundance of things or a lack of things.
Not just
But-
on a side note, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it's kind of funny. So I had a student in one of my classes at Union, and she had it wasn't the latest iPhone, but it was, pretty new, but not the absolute latest. Anyway, her screen broke or something, her iPhone broke, and
Oh, I
everything.
remember this.
And it was all like, I guess, trade, get a new one. You're like, no, I'm not gonna, I don't want to be wasteful and, just throw it away and get a new one. Instead, her father flew out a technician to fix her iPhone, and because she was from California, and, flew this guy out and he fixed her iPhone and flew back to California. But we're not going to be wasteful and just get the next iPhone. We're just going to fly some guy from California to fix the one I have. I was like, and she was telling me this, like, we want to be, not be, overspending and wasteful. Like, yeah. We don't even see the irony.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, should be one that's like, I need the latest, I think I have a 12 plus or something. And, no, Aspen has the 12 plus, I think.
No, Aspen has your old 8.
8. I do have
Yeah.
the 12 and she has the 8. That's what it is. And I should be like, oh, I need it, And it's like, it would be great, but we're not going to go out of our way to, get it. But I do have students who, for whatever reason, it is the unpardonable sin to not have the absolute latest version as soon as it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it still amazes me to hear some people talk about, like, I'm stuck with the 13.
Well, until recently, until this last January, I had my phone for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, he had an old.
I had the Samsung Galaxy 6
Yeah.
that my sister gave to me. So Yeah, it was only because my youngest son took pity on me
Yes.
that it was getting pretty bad. It wouldn't do some things anymore, like notify me of texts and things like that.
Yeah.
And the time was entirely wrong.
Yeah.
The time was entirely wrong on it. And
So
but
weird.
you know, it was still working, and I was going to make it work until it wasn't working
Yes.
anymore. But
We wouldn't have any technology if it wasn't for places I work.
Oh, that's true.
Everything we have was purchased by the schools in some form or fashion. Yeah.
Oh no, Colby gave me my.
The Colby gave you your phone. Yours is the only one we have that didn't come from a school source.
So, anyways, when we're discontent, whether because we have too much basically or not enough, we will think that we have. Where am I?
I don't know. The point, though, like one thing we said, Paul was talking about, I've learned to be happy and content, and with much and with nothing. And usually when we talk about being discontented or being unhappy, it's usually from the side of not having. It's like, oh, I don't have enough money, or I don't have no job, or I don't have this, that. It's coming from the not having side, where the parable of the rich guy with the barns and everything, it was from the other side. Having an overabundance and, still being discontent and like, well, now I'm going to do all this and I'm going to relax and everything. It's on both sides of the coin. You can be discontent with nothing, you can be discontent with a lot. And having the lot makes you want even more.
Right. See, when we're discontent and we think we just have more of something, that the discontent will go away.
Right.
And so we do more and have more to be more content.
But it never happens because
yes.
the discontent isn't found in the possession. It's deeper than that.
Yes. So Paul gives us the secret how to of being content in all situations, even the discontenting ones.
Yes.
So the rest of that there in Philippians 4:11, Paul says, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And so the secret to being content is to live by the power of God and to believe that God can and will take care of me. That it's what He does for me that gives me contentment, and not what I do for myself that gives me contentment.
Yeah, because Paul had the situations of both, being in plenty and being in nothing. And when he obviously when he first started out, he was high on the hog because he was the special child of the Pharisees, and being groomed by them, and Paul is going to be he was Saul to them, but he's going to be the next great, and was had all the best stuff, and he was well financed when they sent him on journeys and errands to do their bidding and stuff, and yet he was struck blind and dependent on others, and he met Jesus on the road to Damascus, and all his life was getting changed, and then other times he was heralded as the great apostle, and other times he was stoned and thrown in prison, and he was on both sides of the fence, constantly kind of back and forth. And that's what he says, I've been everywhere, left, right, and in between, and this is the secret to being content, that whatever I'm going through, it's God who gives me strength.
Yes, and it says he learned to be content. So he went through, on the journey of life, he went through discontenting situations and contenting situations, and learned to be content in all of that.
Yeah.
So anyways, the secret to being content is to live by the power and the strength of God. And what is the greatest power of God? Well, the greatest power of God is love, right? And where do we go to learn about God's love? Well, the 10 Commandments, right? Because the 10 Commandments are the how-to of how to love God and how to love your fellow man. And so the last of the 10 Commandments is thou shalt not covet. And
interesting, it's the last one.
It is interesting.
Of all 10, that's the one to end on.
It is interesting, but when you look at the whole thing, okay, for starters, it says, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his slaves, or his animals, basically, or anything belongs to his neighbor. So, now what's interesting is if you read through all the other 10 commandments, they are all related to covetousness in one way or another. And we're not going to go through all of those because that would take us too long, but let's just start out with the first couple for a second, for just a second. It says, thou shalt have no other gods before me, and you're should not make any other gods that you're going to bow down to. Well, those right there, when we have other gods that we bow down to, we're saying that God in and of himself is not enough, and we must have this other stuff where we take care of ourselves, right? We're bowing down to the money that we've gotten, or whatever it is that we think is going to make us content. We're idolizing that and making that enough. That, like, as if God needs that stuff to keep us content. He doesn't. It is an honest and true relationship with God that keeps us content, and that is the only thing that keeps us content. Is living out a loving relationship with God. That's the strength and that's the power. So basically, when we go about doing that sort of thing, living discontented and getting more things and stuff, all the commandments of how to love your neighbor are simply an extension of the last commandment, okay? I.e., thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal. That's all it started out was covetousness towards needing something. Even lying can be related to covetousness and that sort of thing. So basically saying don't covet what isn't yours and don't go about doing things you can getting things you can see in order to get what isn't yours, in order to provide for yourself rather than being content with what God has provided for you. Okay, I was just waiting for Brett to throw in his comments, So basically, all of the commandments are a reminder to be content with all that God has done for us, all that he has provided for us, and in the case of the 10 Commandments, all of the protection and all of the care that his love provides for us. And so we know that the 10 Commandments are the law of love, right? And when we live it out, God's love protects us. And we learn to be content, just like Paul did. He learned to be content in all these opportunities in his life. So, yes, okay.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, the last commandment, not coveting, and then all the other things. It might be, the other commandments are things we, might do because, we're discontent about something, the lying, the stealing, the, killing. And there's, different ways to kill, not just physically murder somebody. There's, ways to, murder someone's character and character assassination and all that. And usually, those things are, I guess, can be done out of some reason to want more, or, you're discontented about something. And so, yeah, I guess in a real way, the last commandment can kind of like, all those things can lead you to this. So don't covet, don't, desire things that aren't yours, that God hasn't brought into you or your life and stuff. So, yeah. And like I say, with Paul, it was a journey, it was learning, sometimes you're successful, sometimes you're not.
Yes, and it may seem as though we're talking about Paul today, and covetousness, and 10 Commandments, and we are. But if you've been watching us for a little bit here, you will remember that we have been sort of on an Abraham kick, an Abraham series. And so, not wanting to deviate too far from that, right? Still keeping on the old Abraham track here. How does the life of Abraham play into this illustration? Well,
I'm going to do this.
Okay, good. The man with all the words right here.
So how does the life of Abraham play out into this illustration? Oh, you just said that, didn't you? Okay. So...
Now he truly has all the words.
So God told Abraham to go on a physical journey, and did he not? He had a physical journey to go on. He packed up, and he packed up in a way that was not the way she packs up, because he did not use trash bags to put everything he had into.
It works.
Which she does.
It works.
It does work. I have learned to be acceptant of that because it works so well. But anyway.
But you know what also works? You know what also works? Is like when you're packing up a box of books and there's a little bit of space left, but there's no more books left to put in the box. Oh, poor Brett. It just drives him insane. He's very discontent about that. Because all of the same thing has to go into one box.
Yes, I'm very organized that way.
And so he's very sad and discontent when he has to find something else. You know, he used to wonder why when he would open a box that said books on it, he'd find like a roll of toilet paper or something like that, you know. Well, you know, it fit.
Yeah.
It fit.
I'd be missing a sweater or something for years. I'm like, oh, it's in the box book. Who would have thought of that?
Well, you know, it worked.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Worked for you.
Yes. Well,
anyway.
When the man started helping to pack.
Then I knew everything.
That's
true. Anyway, so he packed up. He didn't know where he was going, but taking the first step of the journey, he packed up and boom, he was off. God was taking Abraham also on a spiritual journey, not just a physical journey, where he would also learn to be content in all situations. And boy, was it going to be a life journey of lessons. See, Abraham, he had to learn to be content in all situations. He had to be content to believe that God had the best plan, even though he couldn't see how or why. He didn't know what the next right step was.
He knew what the next right step was.
Yeah.
Yes, because God told him that much. You know, get up and go.
Yep.
And so he couldn't see where or how that was supposed to be good, basically.
Yeah.
But God said, take this next right step, and so that's what he did.
Yep. And boy, did he have times where he had to learn that, you know. And how many times in our lives do we have something like we don't know the future? You know, we might know the next right step, but we don't know where it's going to lead to, and it's scary. And so we want to have control over everything, because control will make us feel safe and happy. And sometimes there's just things that are everything's out of our control.
And sometimes the next right step is just waiting.
Yeah.
It's just waiting. I mean, Abraham certainly learned that next right step.
Yeah, the thing you don't have in the Bible all the times where Abraham was just hanging out, waiting. And that's probably the hardest part, especially if you're, you know, going to have a child and it's going to be the father of all nations, you know, and he's going to be, you know, the promised one and everything, and you've sat in a valley for 5 years or more and you're not getting pregnant and you're thinking, this is not going to happen. Yeah, the waiting can be, as the 80s said in their song, the waiting is the hardest part, for those of you who come from the 80s. Anyway, I'm not there yet, am I? Yeah, I guess I am there. So to wrap it up, which you're all going, when is that coming? Now, to wrap it up, the last of the 10 Commandments specifically says, thou shalt not covet, but all of the commandments are based on not coveting, which is true. Based on believing beyond what we can see, which requires living by faith and stepping out into the one thing we can't see, the next right step. And God's 10 Commandments are just that. Each one is the first step into living a life by the power of God. Living life by the power of God is the secret sauce of being content. The secret sauce?
He said it was a secret.
That's the secret sauce. The 7 different ingredients. The secret sauce of being content. I like that. I guess I didn't think of that when I read it. I just kind of blew through it. It's the secret sauce. But that is actually pretty darn profound, because I don't know, this didn't strike me till I just read it, like this time. I've read this like 3 times now, and it didn't hit me till just now. That sometimes, you know, what's the next right? So in recovery, we have the only part of the future you need to know is what is the next right thing to do. And sometimes, like, how do you know what the next right thing to do? Well, in your recovery, when you're recovering from addiction, sometimes the next right thing is to get out of bed and put your shoes on. Do that much, and then, you know, wait for the next thing. But if I understand what you're saying here, it's the next right. If I don't know what the next right thing is, take a look at the 10 Commandments, and that might tell me what the next right thing is.
Yeah, it's true. Some of those things, some things that people go through life asking, should I or shouldn't I? Mm-hmm. Honestly, if they just took a closer look at the 10 Commandments, it's probably there.
It would be.
Yeah.
So the next right, well, I need to love my neighbor instead of resent my neighbor.
Yeah.
Or I need to not lie, or I need to,
Yeah,
does
what I'm doing, I mean, take the whole adultery thing. I mean, That's not just adultery, but it is stealing someone else's time, stealing someone else's person, and the lying that generally goes with that.
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally murder will go with that. Yeah, I mean, there's and certainly then putting other gods before God, because now you have to have that person, even though God says not to do that, and putting your own wisdom above God's wisdom. And
so the whole crux of it is being content in all situations is to just take the day, one day at a time, and like where we say Paul was at, he knows that no matter what's going on, it's Christ that gives me strength. So being in all situations and understanding wherever I'm at, it's Christ that gives me strength, and what I need to do is the next right thing. What is the next right thing? I can look at possibly the 10 Commandments to show me the next right thing, and it is Christ who's going to give us the strength to do the next right thing, and that's being content in everything.
Yeah, because there in Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6, trust in the Lord and He will make your paths straight. So trust in the words of God and just live out the ones that you know. And He makes our paths straight. He promises to do that.
Yes. And if you're not completely sure, you can always go to Uncle Arthur's Bedtime Stories.
Yes, he does have a lot of good character building stories in there.
Yes, he does. Anyway. And they're all good boys and girls who come out happy in the end.
Well, generally, that's the result of...
Yes. I don't know. It's so funny. I guess it's the pictures they drew, and they're all boys and girls, boys wearing ties and girls wearing their little dresses and everything else. When I grew up, that was not my neighborhood.
It was like the 50s.
It was the 50s. It was a different time. That was true. And we do have Aspen, who probably does dress more like that than I ever saw. I don't know how she escaped inheriting my inability to choose clothes.
Right, mine too.
Yeah, she's actually a very good fashionista.
Probably must have come from your mother.
Maybe, Mom, because she's really good at that. So, all right, well, there you go. So, hope you enjoyed today. Thanks for joining us, and hope you had a good time, a good Sabbath, and we wish you a good rest of the week, and we'll see you